All right, we've seen how derivative can be interpreted a couple of different ways. We've seen that derivative is the same thing as the slope of a tangent line. We've seen that derivative is the same thing as the slope at one point. We've seen that derivative is really an instantaneous rate of change. So as soon as they ask us to find the rate of change at a specific time, we know we're really just finding the derivative. Well, another interpretation or another way we use derivatives was when we talk about marginal analysis, like a marginal revenue or marginal cost or marginal profit. And so in business and economics, the rate of change of such variables as cost, revenue, and profit are important considerations. Economists use the word marginal to refer to the rate of change. For example, marginal cost refers to the rate of change in the cost. So if they ask us for the rate at which the cost is changing, they're going to say, find the marginal cost. That really just means we're finding the derivative. So, roughly speaking, the marginal cost at some level of production X is the cost to produce the X plus 1 item. So it's really talking about what happens when you go to produce the next item that you're producing. How is the cost changing? Or the profit changing, or the revenue changing. So we can actually use this for all of the above. So as soon as we hear that word marginal, we know we're just finding the rate of change or the derivative. Okay? Let's look at example number 6. So it says here, suppose that the total cost in hundreds of dollars to produce X thousand barrels of a beverage is given by this equation. So X is thousands of barrels produced, and C of X is the cost in hundreds of dollars to produce it. Right? And then it asks us to find the marginal cost. Well, as soon as I hear that word marginal, I know that it's talking about the rate of change in cost or the derivative of cost. So we want to know what the marginal cost is when X is 5. Really what that means is we're producing 5,000 barrels. How much is our cost changing at that moment when we produce 5,000 barrels of whatever this beverage is? So really, as I'm reading this, and as you're reading it on your homework and your exam, you need to be able to interpret that the same way. Marginal cost just really means we're taking the derivative of cost. So let's do that. The derivative of 4x squared is 8x, the derivative of 100x is 100, and the derivative of any constant, 500, is 0. So my marginal cost at any time is 8x plus 100. But it specifically asks us in this part to find the marginal cost when we produce 5,000 barrels of this beverage, when X equals 5. So let's plug in a 5, and we end up getting 14,000. Well, we end up getting 140, right? We really end up getting 140. But remember, this C prime of 5 really is talking about the rate at which the cost is changing in hundreds of dollars. So I really need to add 2 zeros to represent hundreds of dollars. And so if I was doing a sentence interpretation with the 3 important things, when is this happening? What is happening? And what is our answer with correct units? So this 14,000 is really talking about after you produce the 5,000th barrel. So when you go to produce the next 1,000 barrels, the cost is doing what? Well, the cost is increasing by $14,000 per 1,000 barrel. Not per barrel, but remember X was per 1,000 barrel. So as soon as I go to produce another 1,000 barrels, my cost is going to go up by another $14,000. It doesn't mean that it cost me $14,000. It means it cost me $14,000 more than it did just a second ago. It's increasing by $14,000 per 1,000 barrels. Let's do another part. What about X equals 30? Meaning we're producing 30,000 barrels of this beverage? If we produce 30,000 barrels of this beverage, how is my cost changing? Well, let's take our derivative, our marginal cost, plug in a 30, and I end up getting 340. But remember, this C prime is really the rate at which my cost is changing in hundreds of dollars. And when is this happening? And what is happening? Let's write a sentence. So after 30,000 barrels are produced, when I go to produce the 31,000th barrel, the cost is still increasing, and now it's increasing by $34,000 per 1,000 barrels. So my cost is going up now by $34,000 per 1,000 barrels. it doesn't cost me $34,000. It cost me $34,000 more than it did just a second ago. So it actually is costing me more, right? The change is more than it was if I was just producing 5,000 barrels. Interesting.